My best friend of 16 years slept with my wife. When I confronted my family about it, they told me I needed to see things from everyone's perspective. So I cut them all off, every single one of them, and I have never once regretted it. My name is Grant. I'm 33 years old. I'm a senior project manager at a tech consulting firm in Austin. And for most of my life I was the kind of person other people described as solid. Reliable. The one you could call at midnight and I'd actually pick up. I built my reputation on that, professionally and personally. Kept my word, showed up when I said I would. Didn't leave things half finished. I used to think that was something to be proud of. Turns out it just made me useful. Lance and I had been friends since we were 10. We grew up 3 houses apart. Outside of Nashville, played baseball together all through middle and high school. Both ended up at the same university in Knoxville, which felt like fate at the time, and feels like a cruel joke in retrospect. He was the charming one. The kind of guy who could walk into a room full of strangers and have them laughing within 5 minutes. I was quieter, more deliberate. The kind of person who took a long time to trust people but trusted them completely once I did. We balanced each other out, or that's what I thought. When his family relocated to Austin 5 years ago, I was genuinely glad. I was already settled here after grad school, building towards something, when I met Kayla 2 years later through a mutual friend at a roof deck thing in East Austin. Lance was the third call I made after I decided. She was someone I wanted to pursue. He laughed and said it was about time I let myself be a real human being for once. He gave a speech at our wedding. Stood at the front of that venue on a Saturday. In October. 68 people watching. And talked about how I was the most dependable person he'd ever known. Said he'd never seen me the way I was with Kayla and that he knew I'd take care of her. My father was crying. My mother was recording it on her phone. With her reading glasses pushed up on her head. The ring I put on her finger cost just under $7,000. She'd walked me past a jewelry store window about 4 months before I proposed and pointed at a specific setting. Oval cut, simple band, classic. And said that one. In the casual way people say things they don't expect you to actually remember. I remembered. I went back the next weekend and put it on a payment plan. When I finally proposed, in our apartment, nothing fancy. Just us and takeout, and the ring hidden in a kitchen drawer. She looked at it for a long moment, and then at me and said, "You actually got it." I told her I paid attention to her. I meant it. About a year into the marriage, things started feeling slightly off in ways I couldn't pin down. Kayla laughing at her phone and shifting it away from me. Without it being conscious enough to seem intentional. Lance texting her occasionally about things he could have just texted me about. What time were we meeting? Did I prefer one restaurant over another? Small enough to be nothing, weird enough to notice. A glance between the two of them at a Sunday barbecue at my parents' house. That lasted about half a second too long. And made my stomach drop before I even understood why. I told myself I was manufacturing problems. I'd always been prone to overthinking. That's what being solid gets you. You start to treat your own instincts like background noise. I was supposed to be in Dallas for a client meeting Monday through Wednesday that March. The client pushed the Wednesday portion entirely, which freed me up by early afternoon Tuesday. I drove back instead of waiting around. I stopped at a place we liked on South Congress, a Mexican spot with a line out the door on weekends but quick on weekdays, and picked up her usual carnitas plate with extra salsa verde, chips, a slice of tres leches she'd order and then eat half of and claim she was done. Lance's truck was parked in front of the house. When I pulled onto our street, I didn't react to it immediately. He dropped by sometimes. I thought maybe he was there waiting for me. And nobody had told him I wasn't home yet. I came in through the side door with my hands full. Kayla's keys on the counter. Her jacket thrown over the back of the chair she always used like it was a coat hook, despite the actual coat hook 6 feet away. But the house was too quiet. Not empty quiet. Occupied quiet. The particular stillness of people trying to keep the noise down. I set the food on the counter and called her name. Then called it again. The bedroom door at the end of the hall was closed. I heard voices, low, that specific low that doesn't have a legitimate explanation. I'm not going to walk through every detail of what was on the other side of that door. I think everyone reading this knows what I found. What I'll say is this. She was wearing the flannel shirt I gave her the previous Christmas. Dark green, the softest fabric I could find, because she was always cold, and she'd complained about the one she had falling apart. She'd told me she wore it almost every night. That she slept better in it. I stood there in the doorway and the first thing my brain registered was that shirt. Lance looked at me. He actually said bro. One word. 16 years of friendship and the opening line was bro. I didn't throw anything. Didn't raise my voice. I felt my brain go somewhere very cold and very still. Like everything non-essential just shut off. I looked at him and said very clearly, "Get out of my house." I looked at her and said, "I need you gone by Friday, take what's yours." Then I left. I drove to my coworker Dave's apartment and sat on his couch for 4 hours without saying much. Dave's someone I'd trust with most things. He didn't push, didn't ask me to perform, being okay. Just ordered pizza and put something on TV, and let me be in whatever state I was in. When I finally told him what I'd walked in on, he went completely pale and asked me twice if I was serious. I was serious. That night on his air mattress, I did not sleep at all. I lay there running timelines in my head instead. How long had it been going on? Whether it had started before the wedding. Whether Lance had known, when he gave that speech. When he hugged me at the end of the night and said he was proud of me. Whether she had stood at the front of that venue and meant a single word she said. Kayla was out by Thursday. She took the good coffee maker, the throw blanket she'd claimed from our second year together, a portion of the living room furniture that had technically been a joint gift. She left a note. It was 2 paragraphs. She wrote that she was sorry, that she'd tried to stop herself as what she felt for Lance was something she hadn't expected and hadn't known how to handle. The second paragraph started with, "I hope someday you can understand that love doesn't follow a plan." I folded the note 4 times and put it in the recycling bin. Bleached the bedroom that afternoon. My family found out within the week. My mother's first reaction was fury. Not at me, but at them. She called Lance's behavior shameful. Said Kayla wasn't the person she'd thought she was. Said she didn't want to hear either name mentioned around her. My father said the right things. But there was a careful quality to how he said them. Like someone reading a script they hadn't fully committed to. My sister Kelly slipped first. She called about 10 days after everything came out and mentioned, somewhere in the middle of the conversation, that she'd reached out to Lance, just to hear his side. She said. I asked her what information she thought she was missing. She said she just wanted to understand. I said, understand what exactly? What about this is unclear. She didn't have a great answer to that. My mother called again in early May. I could hear it in the first 2 sentences. The shift had happened. She'd been talking to Lance's mother. Their families had been close for over 20 years. Their mothers had been in the same book club. Their fathers golfed together twice a month. They'd spent a week at the same beach house in the Outer Banks, 2 summers in a row. She said. Lance's mother was heartbroken. She said Lance wasn't doing well, she said. She thought it would help for all of us to sit down together. I asked her who she meant by all of us. She meant me. Her, my father, Lance, and possibly Kayla at her kitchen table in Nashville, to talk things through as a family. I told her that was not going to happen. She said I was being shut off. I said I was being clear and those weren't the same thing. She said she just wanted to help everyone heal. I said what she actually wanted was for the situation to stop being uncomfortable. And healing me was not the same priority as managing her own discomfort. She started crying. My father got on the phone and tried a different approach. He said Lance had made a mistake, but that 20+ years of history was not nothing. And I needed to consider what I was walking away from. He said relationships were complicated, and people were imperfect, and the measure of character was how you responded to difficulty. I listened to about 45 seconds of that, and then told him I was going to hang up, and I did. The calls kept coming. My mother, my father, Kelly, an aunt who'd gotten involved, somehow, Lance twice from numbers I didn't recognize. He left 1 voicemail. Said he knew sorry wasn't enough. Said he valued our friendship more than he could say, and he would understand if I never wanted to talk to him again. He delivered that speech while standing on top of 16 years of history he'd elected to burn down. I deleted it without responding. I took the job in Seattle in June. A firm up there had been looking for someone with my background. Senior manager role, 22% raise, full relocation package. I said yes within 48 hours of the offer. I did not tell my family the exact date I was leaving. I did not share my new address. I sold most of the furniture, packed what fit in my car, and drove north. I didn't announce the departure. I just left. Seattle was what I needed. New city, new team. Nobody who knew my last name or my story. I found a place in Capitol Hill. Started over the way you only can when nobody around you has any prior claim on your identity. I went quiet with my family. Calls went to voicemail, texts got 1-word replies when they got anything at all. My mother sent an email in August. She wrote that the family was hurting. She wrote that Lance and Kayla had ended things, which she seemed to think was significant news I would want. She wrote that Lance was struggling, losing friends, having a hard time at work, and ended the email with, I hope you can find some compassion, Grant. This has been difficult for all of us. I read the whole thing, closed the window, did not respond. My father appeared at my office in October. My assistant called down to tell me there was a man in the lobby, saying it was a family matter. I knew it wasn't an emergency. I went down anyway because I'd rather deal with something head on than have it show up somewhere less controlled. He looked older. Genuinely tired in a way I hadn't seen before. He said my mother wasn't sleeping. That the family felt like it was unraveling, that Lance had contacted him personally to say how much he regretted what he'd done. He said he believed Lance was sincere. I looked at him for a moment and said, "Why are you here?" Not as a question, as a fact. He said he was there because I was his son. I said, "You had a choice when this happened, about who you were going to protect. And you chose to manage your friendships instead. That was your decision. I'm not responsible for what that cost you." He told me I wasn't being fair. I told him I was being exact. He said holding on to this would hurt me more than anyone else. I said I wasn't holding on to anything. I was just done absorbing the cost of other people's choices so they could feel better. I told him to go home and not come back to my workplace. He said more things. I said goodbye, turned around, went upstairs. 3 weeks later, my mother and Kelly drove up from the Bay Area, where Kelly had recently moved. They knocked on my door on a Saturday morning. My mother had found my address through a family friend who still had my information. She was already crying when I opened the door. She said she'd driven 6 hours because she had no other way to reach me. I said she'd driven 6 hours to override boundaries I'd set clearly. She said she needed me to understand how much she loved me. I said, loving me would have looked different in January and February, when I was the one who needed somebody to just say they were on my side. That window closed. Kelly tried. She said Lance was genuinely remorseful. Said Kayla was struggling. Said everybody had paid a price for this and the pain had gone around. Those are called consequences. I didn't create them. I just stopped volunteering to absorb them on everyone's behalf. My mother grabbed my hand and said please. She said she just wanted her family back. And I looked at her and felt something I can only describe as clarity. Not anger. Not coldness. Just a very clean and settled understanding of what was true. I said, the family you want back never really existed. What you want is for me to pretend none of this happened. So everyone can go back to being comfortable. I'm not going to do that. I stepped back inside. My mother was still talking when I closed the door. I stood in my hallway and listened to my own breathing, until I heard their car pull away. I sent a certified letter the following week, 3 paragraphs. It said I was not open to contact, until there was a clear and genuine acknowledgement. Not a general "we're sorry things went this way," but a specific, unqualified statement that they had handled the situation poorly, and that I had been let down by people who were supposed to have my back. It said I was not negotiating. It said if anyone showed up at my home or workplace again, I would contact an attorney. Return receipt requested. That was 9 months ago. I haven't heard from any of them since. Not directly, not through third parties, not through email or letters, or calls from numbers I don't recognize. I got promoted in the spring. I have a good apartment with a view I didn't think I could afford, and a 3-year-old lab mix named Chief, who has absolutely no idea any of this happened, and thinks I'm the greatest thing that has ever existed. He might be right. People ask if I think I'll ever reconnect with my family. Honestly, I don't rule it out forever. What I've ruled out is being the one who pays the entire cost of someone else's mistake, just to make the room feel less awkward. I spent 33 years being the responsible one, the solid one, the guy who absorbed things quietly and kept showing up. I'm done subsidizing people who only value that until it's inconvenient for them. 9 months of peace. First time in years I've slept well.